For example, if you just do what everybody expects you to do, and I'm speaking from personal experience, then yeah, life's just going to be a steady hum of normalcy. Yeah, I can provide for myself. Yeah, I can get a decent education and check all the boxes of being a good human being, in the modern world. But are you truly expressing yourself in the world and leaving the kind of impact that you want to? And by impact, I don't necessarily, big old spider, I don't necessarily mean, like brute force, like I need to have my name known generations down. No. What I mean is, whatever you want to do, whatever is intuitively driving you as a person, if that's not being pursued, then you're not going to have the impact on your short time here on earth that you want. And I think that would be the saddest thing, is a life of conformity leading ultimately to an unfulfilling life. So yeah, I could reference like people in the past, that Edison or Tesla, as far as inventions, Einstein, as far as the theory of relativity, or thinking outside the box and not what was expected at that time, leading to radical changes in our understanding of art, history, science. There's a million examples. And one commonality between all of them is that they weren't afraid to question the norm. They weren't afraid to push against the expectations set on them by outside forces. And I'm not saying break the law. I'm not saying anything. One example I could use actually just happened on my walk here, is there was a father and a son that were walking towards the restrooms, and I noticed they walked in the female restroom. Now, they didn't even know I was here, and no one else is here, right? And I was like, man, that's kind of weird. Why as a father and son, why would you walk in the female restroom, right? For a few reasons. But then, I also had to use the bathroom, so I went to the male's restroom. It was gross. But you know what? I still did it. I used the bathroom. I'm not trying to be vulgar, but while I was in there, I was looking around. I was like, this is not nice. If I would have just done what they did, I would have had a much better experience, I wouldn't have to put up with the smell, probably. So that's one example, and I'm not saying, don't take this, please don't walk in women's restrooms if they're cleaner. That's of course not what I'm saying, but it does touch on the fact that there's a society expectation, on a conformity, that most people would have walked in the men's bathroom whether it was tore up from the floor up or not, but I'm kind of going on a tangent there. But it does speak to the fact that your life could potentially be better, whether, sensory smell, or ultimately how your life turns out, on just not following through with all these constructs and the outside pressures. Just, don't be afraid to swim against the river, go against the grain, and do what your heart is telling you to do. Do what your heart is telling you to do. Any external voice, although is important at times, like when you're driving your car, those constructs are there for a reason. So it is important, but be able to decipher what's not important. A lot of the things we're fearing is just ingrained from an evolutionary perspective. When we're in small tribes, if we didn't fit in socially, it could mean life or death for us or our family. So we would fit in, get in to fit in. you know, and nowadays that doesn't play out the same way. We're in these much larger, broader societies, not just number-wise, but ideologies. Get off me, spider. And it just plays out differently. Those same fears are going to keep people back from being their most creative, authentic, and impactful self. And the biggest tragedy would be to go through life and get to an older age where maybe there's not the same energy or not able to do what you really wanted to do in life, and realize that it was shaped by expectations that weren't even your own, that were other people's. That's pretty much all I had to say on that topic. I could keep going about constructs and escaping the matrix of modern civilization. I will say one more thing. Sorry. So if you're still here, thank you. I will say one more thing. When they're doing research on these tribes, remote parts of Africa and all around the world, these tribes that don't have contact with outside civilizations and the modern hustle culture and all these societal norms that we take as solid truths, they're so much happier than we are. There's so much happiness that's spread. There's so much love. Yeah, the medical systems might not be to our standard. If they break a bone, you know, it could be a bigger issue than here, but, you know, homeopathically, just as a human being, they got things figured out. And they also don't suffer from the chronic illnesses and diseases that are probably caused by the stress of societal norms and expectations. So that is another thing to consider, is that stress will affect you physically, emotionally, and in your trajectory of life. So it's not just some esoteric thing that you can't reach. You can see it play out day by day. Your body will react to these structures, you know. Eventually, if you're not taking care of what's driving you as a person, you're going to have a lot more stress. And it's just one of the side effects of living in a society like we do. And there's very good things about the society, but the bad things are at an individual level. There's some repercussions of following the norms. So just think of this, push where you can, you know, not on legal things, not, you know, on your responsibilities, but push where you can, and don't let the constructs define who you are as a person, and for sure don't let it affect your trajectory in life. Everybody has the same potential. Maybe not everybody has the same starting point, but everybody can do great things, and I truly believe that. So with that said, thank you for watching. I love you guys. If you stuck around this long, even though I said it was the end of the video 2 minutes ago, I think you got a little bit more value, I would hope. So thank you guys. Love you. See you next time.